Welcome to the press conference of the Joint Prevention Control Mechanism of the State Council. The topic for today's press conference is the financial policy, how they support the economic development and the resumption of work. We have with us DG Sun Guofeng from People's Bank of China, Mr. Ye Yanfei from CBIRC, Vice Governor and Executive Director of Agricultural Development Bank, Mr. Lin Li, and Mr. Zheng Dongsheng from the Agricultural Bank of China. They will take questions related with this topic. Let me first give you the update of the epidemic. Yesterday, between 0 and 24 o'clock, China's mainland reported new confirmed cases 20, new fatal cases 10, all in Hubei, and new suspected cases 39. Yesterday's new cured and discharged cases 1,370. Close contacts removed from medical observation 1,409. And the number of severe cases dropped by 384. By the end of yesterday, China's mainland reported that there had been existing confirmed cases 10,734, including 3,226 severe cases. In accumulative terms, 66,911 cases were cured and discharged from hospitals. Death cases 3,199 and confirmed cases 80,844. The remaining suspected cases numbered 113. Close contacts traced 679,759. Close contacts still under medical observation 10,189. In Hubei, the new confirmed cases 4, all of them in Wuhan. The new cured and discharged cases 1,335, including 1,181 in Wuhan. The new fatal cases 10, all in Wuhan. The remaining confirmed cases 10,431, including 9,911 in Wuhan. Among these cases, there are 3,163 severe cases, including 3,058 in Wuhan. In accumulative terms, 54,278 cases have been cured and discharged from hospitals, including 37,632 in Wuhan. In accumulative terms, fatal cases 3,085, including 2,456 in Wuhan. Confirmed cases 67,794 and 49,999 in Wuhan. New suspected case 1 in Wuhan. Remaining suspected cases 18, including 15 in Wuhan. Yesterday, the new imported cases numbered 16, including 5 in Beijing, 4 in Zhejiang, 3 in Shanghai, 3 in Gansu, and 1 in Guangdong. By the end of yesterday, in accumulative terms, there have been 111 confirmed cases imported. In accumulative terms, we have received 204 cases reported from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, including 141 from Hong Kong SAR, 10 from Macau SAR, and 53 from the Taiwan region. Outside Hubei, all the provinces have confirmed cases 16. All of them are imported. The new suspected cases 38, and there's no new fatal case. For severe case, the number is dropped by 4. The newly confirmed domestic cases are all in Wuhan. Outside Wuhan, in Hubei, for 10 days in a row, there has been no confirmed cases reported. And outside Hubei, the suspected cases since February the 27th have all been kept in the single digit, and over the past 3 days there has been no new cases reported. At the moment, the priority is for treatment and ensure the cure rate. Now the floor is open for Q&A, and your questions are welcome to focus on today's topic, and please identify yourself. Now the floor is open. The first question on the right, on the front row, the second lady reporter, please. With CCTV, Premier Li Keqiang proposed that the re-lending and subsidy policies should be implemented. We notice that PBC has set up a 300 billion RMB re-lending fund. How about the use of the fund, and has it played a role or contributed to the resumption of work? We will have Mr. Sun to answer the question. Thank you for your question. According to the arrangement of the State Council, on January the 31st, PBC set up a dedicated fund for the epidemic control. By March the 13th, PBC has already distributed 184 billion RMB yuan, and we've already provided preferential loans to 4,708 key companies, and each company on average can receive 4 million RMB yuan as the epidemic fund. Now, for the financial cost for these enterprises, they can now enjoy preferential loans or interest for the borrowings from the bank. Furthermore, we have accelerated the distribution of the fund. In terms of the result, from January the 25th to March the 10th, the key enterprises within the list have already produced large quantities of the PPEs, including the testing kits, the negative pressure ambulances, the masks, the food, vegetable, and meat, and etc. This earmarked funding is also funding the key infrastructure projects like the Xiaotangshan Hospital in Beijing, and the 330 million RMB yuan have been distributed to the Urban Construction Group of Beijing. At the moment, we can see that this earmarked funding has generated sound result. Let's continue on the left. On the front row, the first reporter, please. Thank you. I'm with Economic Daily. My question is, apart from the re-lending and the interest rate subsidies, there are also many other policies to support the enterprises to resume operation. For SMEs, there are also temporary policies. So I would like to know, how can these policies, which are very constructive, to be implemented? We will have Mr. Ye Yanfei to answer the question. Thank you for your question. Indeed, as you rightly pointed out, CBIRC and other financial regulators have worked out policies to encourage business resumption and economic development, especially in the spring plowing season. So we have policies like the SME dedicated policies. I can see you are very interested in the implementation of such policy measures. This is indeed what we are doing now. First, we strengthened monitoring and evaluation. We request the financial institutions to ensure they are support to the businesses and also to the agricultural sector for the business resumption and spring plowing.
We've been mobilizing stakeholders, integrating resources, and made solid efforts to implement the policies. Well-conditioned or eligible SMEs who are able to resume business and agricultural households will not delay their process of business or operation resumption because lack of funding. Besides, for the business who want to have their repayment delayed, we've set up a list with individual ledger accounts. We asked the financial institutions to follow closely the resumption of business funding needs by individual business and provide respective support. The businesses who do need the repayment to be delayed, a ledger account should be established to clarify the amount to be repaid later, the timetable, and also the staff who will be accountable for individual ledger accounts. Third, we've also asked the financial institutions to step up their monitoring. On half-month basis, the outlets and branches need to report to headquarters the status of laggard payment, and the headquarters of the banks will report to the CBIRC so that we will have a comprehensive understanding of the implementation of these policies and provide guidances where necessary. Fourth, we've been disseminating and popularizing best practices so that they can learn from each other to support the resumption of business and the spring plowing in rural areas. In general, the situation has been positive up till now. To respond to the epidemic, the total lending support provided by the financial institutions has exceeded 1.4 trillion RMB in the first several months of this year. The overall loan has increased by 130 billion RMB over the same period of last year. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the second row on the left side, please. Thank you. See, Hong Kong China Review. Among the 6 commercial banks, there is a high outstanding amount for the loans provided to the farming business. So what are the measures adopted by Agricultural Bank of China to support SMEs engaged in agricultural businesses? Thank you for your question. Impacted by the epidemic, we've seen many SMEs have run out of their capital or cash flow. We've waived, exempted, slowed the repayment and provided financial assurance to them. We've streamlined the review and approval procedures, waived exempted commissions, delayed the repayment of the principal and interests, and reduced the interest rate of borrowing, and ensured financing needs are met. For the SMEs who cannot repay their principal and interests, we do not count them as default. No changes to the credit rating, no downgrade of their credit status. For 252 SMEs, we have extended the loan repayment of 131 million. For 933 business, 6.2 billion value of loan have experienced the delay services. We've also been optimizing the credit policies, delegated the review and approval power to branches and outlets. The know your customer diligence should be done with a one-stop service, and this shouldn't extend beyond 2 days. The online loan application review and approval have also been used to improve the service efficiency. Sixth, reducing the interest rate, cut fees, we hope for this year, the cost for inclusive financing for SMEs will be further reduced by 0.5%. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the first row on the right side, please. With People's Daily. I have a question for Agricultural Development Bank. Up till now, how much of the relending funds have been distributed to businesses? What type of businesses and what have been their interest rates? I'd like to ask Managing Director Lin Li of Agricultural Development Bank to take the question. Thank you for your interest in the financial support provided to agricultural business since the adoption of the relending funds. We've been following the guidance from the central government. Our general principle is to ensure precise services to support the resumption of business by agricultural business. We are a policy bank. As of the 14th of March, we've supported 1,649 business and issued a total loan of over 50 billion RMB, supported 2,600 plus business to resume business with a loan of 170 plus billion RMB, among which 78% of the helped business were SMEs. To implement the relending funds policy, we've adopted 5 measures. First, rapid response. The headquarters opened the channel to accept special and urgent application of loans. And provided 50 million RMB yuan on the second day to Hubei and help the companies to get access to the relevant PPEs. Furthermore, we have focused on the priorities. We have supported the key areas. By March the 7th, ADB is the first bank that has accomplished the PBOC's assignment. Up to now, 357 companies have already received our lending support, and also 1/6 of the lending support is targeted at the Hubei province. At the crucial stage of epidemic control, the headquarters have dedicated the relevant powers to the local branches. Also, for the procurement of some key materials, they can get the borrowings, they can get the lendings before the previous stated procedures. It is fair to say that the Agricultural Development Bank has worked around the clock, and on average, it only took 2 to 3 days to issue the loans. The fastest loan record was in 6 hours. Also, we have used the preferential interest rate with the subsidy for interest rate. The businesses can enjoy favorable lendings. Now, 53% of the enterprises can find their borrowing procedure accelerated and streamlined. We have the confidence that, guided by the PBOC and the relevant financial regulators, we can issue loans to benefit the people. Thank you. Let's continue. On the right, the second row, the third lady reporter, with Financial Times, the China Financial Network. We noticed that apart from the 300 billion earmarked loans, there are also other big amount of policy measure to support, or the 500 billion re-lending and the interest rate subsidy provided. So how about what are the differences between these two policy measures?
人民
To support the resumption of business on the 26th, PBOC has made 500 billion relending with a further discount rate with the 500 billion relending funds along with the 300 with the 30 billion relending had different policy targets. The 300 billion was for epidemic response. We focused on the flagship companies who were producing medical supplies and emergency response supplies. The NDRC and MIIT have worked out a list of the flagship companies. 9 provincial Bank of PBOC branches have been working on this 300 billion, and the 500 billion relending funds were inclusive financing support to all business, which has a bigger coverage, including the SMEs who want to resume their business. 2,500 local banks have participated in these 500 billion relending funds with the discount rate. As long as the purposes and the discount rate by the financial institution are up to these criteria, they can come to PBOC and apply for the relending fund. This has increased the liquidity with the 500 billion reduction in the interest rate by 0.25 basis points. It can also support the resumption of business, poverty alleviation, animal husbandry, raising, foreign trade that have been most exposed to the epidemic as of the 13th of March. So the local banks have already distributed 10 billion plus loans, including almost half to the agricultural business, with the weighted average of 4.36 discounted loan with a weighted interest rate of 2.98, which was lower than the LPR required by the State Council with 50 basis points, which stood at 4.55. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's continue. On the right, on the fourth row, the first reporter. With China Media Group and the CCTV Financial Channel, we noticed that during the epidemic, the PBOC is guiding the downward trend of the interest rate. What are the measures or the future adjustment in this regard? We will have Mr. Sun to answer your question. Thank you. I think with the marketization of the interest rate and more market forces introduced to the interest rate, we need to follow the changes in the actual interest rate. In recent years, PBOC has made constant adjustment to the market interest rate. So last year in August, we had the LPR reform facilitating the downward trend of the interest rate. For the first 2 months of this year, the interest rate is 5.49% compared with the July before the LPR reform. We can see the reduction of the interest rate, the potential of the reform has been released. For the next step, PBOC will continue to facilitate the downward trend and encourage the resumption of operation of the enterprises. We hope to create a favorable environment. Also, we will continue to push forward the LPR reform and also the relevant conversion and realize the integrated reform of the FTR and reduce the potential of interest reduction. And also, we will invigorate the individual businesses. Furthermore, we will have the base interest rate as the mainstay in determining the interest rates and ensure the market order in the savings market and reduce the burden for the banks. Okay, let's continue. On the left, on the third row, the third reporter. Gentlemen, please. Thank you. I'm with Farmers Daily. We know that the re-lending and the interest rate subsidy policies are mainly conducted and designed for the agricultural sector. So, in the context of the epidemic control, how can such policies support the agricultural development? Thank you for your question. Mr. Zhang, to answer your question. Indeed, my bank has been using the policy measures to ensure the agricultural development. First, we have made every effort to ensure that the borrowing need are well satisfied, especially among the agricultural produce, the materials, the raw materials producers in agriculture. We try to provide more lendings to these agricultural-related businesses. Secondly, we have provided farmer beneficial policies and measures. And thirdly, we try to ensure the financial services for the agricultural products and the sideline agricultural products. We have worked out specific lists of the relevant agribusinesses so that they can gain access to the credits and the borrowings. Furthermore, we have come up with 19 specific measures to help the pork producers and also the processors in the supply chain. The whole pork production chain has received double the amount of lendings compared with that of last year. Furthermore, we will provide every facilitation to ensure their borrowing needs are satisfied. Also, the relevant interest reduction policies are well implemented in this regard. Okay, let's continue. On the left, on the fourth row, the second lady reporter, please. Thank you. With Hong Kong economic erode, on March the 12th, WHO declared that COVID-19 has become a pandemic. So in order to stabilize foreign trade, what are the measures adopted by the government, and also how to ensure that the cross-border settlement will not be interrupted or affected? We will have Mr. Ye to answer your question. Thank you for your question. Indeed, foreign trade is faced with a big challenge as the global pandemic is still spreading, even though in China the epidemic is under control. So we try to provide more trade financing to support foreign trade. Secondly, we urge and guide the financial institutions, especially the banks, to expand their powers delegated to the branches, to the local branches, as the local branches know better the situations in the local areas.
Third, for SMEs, settled with problems. In repayment of the principal and interest rate, we can have some delayment so that they can maintain their cash flow and liquidity and to be continuously engaged in foreign trade. Fourth, urge grassroots level institutions to exchange more frequently with the headquarters, enhance the collaboration between the corresponding banks to deal with the disruption and interruptions to the settlement channels influenced by the epidemic. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the fifth row on the right side, please. Thank you. With Carbon News, I have a question for Agricultural Development Bank. We know the pork price has been on rapid increase. The epidemic has made the supply tighter. What are the policies adopted by Agricultural Development Bank to support swine production and breeding? Thank you for your question. In China, we had an old saying which goes to the effect that if the pork price is stable, then the society is stable. The price of the pork is an important factor to look at in our epidemic response. Agricultural Development Bank has been supporting the swine breeding industry. The headquarters had issued a notice of guidelines on supporting the swine breeding. We have made specific deployments in the three following aspects. First, very rapid granting of loans. The loan for swine breeding industry for this year need to have a new incremental value of 60 billion RMB. By the end of June, most of the banks should have completed this loan distribution and granting. We have a very tight deadline for all the branches because the swine breeding industry has a cycle. Therefore, loan must be granted earlier so that swine can be bred earlier. Piglets can grow faster and bigger early. Second, precise support should be given to the major swine breeding factories and industry players. We've put up a list of the flagship companies for swine breeding and processing, and precise financial support should be provided. Third, big size loan and green or faster track should be expanded. More review and approval power has been delegated to the local branches. Further reduce the interest rate of the loans channeled to swine breeding companies. Lower the threshold for finance access by SMEs and allow the repayment at a later stage by the difficult SMEs. Up till now, we've already distributed a total loan of 10 billion RMB, and the outstanding loan balance saw a 39% compared with that of the previous months. We will continue to increase the loan granting and financing to the swine breeding companies so as to ensure the people's livelihood. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the third row on the left side, please. With CCTV Group International Channel, in February, the national financing has saw a decrease, but with the relenting policy, more measures will be adopted to support the recovery of the real economy. What are those specific measures? I'd like to ask Inspector Ye Yanfei to take the question. Thank you for your question. We will continue to support SMEs and the private businesses. They had been the companies who found it difficult to have the access to financing. They were also relatively heavily hit by the epidemic, in particular the ones in transportation, retailing, hospitality, catering, recreational businesses. They were the most exposed to the epidemic. We also focus on the businesses that are engaged in spring plowing, the entire agricultural business chain. We also focus on the businesses who are resuming their operations, ensure that more branches are channeling loans to enhance the liquidity and cash flow of the businesses. Third, we'll focus on industry coordinated support. We know that many linchpins of the global supply chain are companies in China. Therefore, we should focus our financial support to these linchpin companies. We should also ensure that these linchpin companies can further support the upstream and downstream SMEs so that they could be the leverage point to ensure the entire supply chain rerunning. Besides, we should also support the major infrastructure projects, including construction, installation of equipment, devices, the procurement of the raw materials to support these projects, these major projects. Fifth, in light of the warming of consumption, we can also channel more consumption loans and credit to support the resurgence in consumption. Thank you. Next question, please. With the Shenzhen satellite TV, I have a question related to relending loans. Some businesses say when they were applying for the relending loan, they found the threshold was high. Some banks asked for collaterals. Some banks refused the granting of the loans because the application value was very low. So do these applications need collaterals? Is there a minimum level requirement? Are there faster tracks? I'd like to ask Deputy Governor Zhan Dongsheng from ABC to take the question. Thank you for your question. We have a differentiated policy for collateral or deposits. If businesses that can provide collaterals, they can provide collaterals. But for businesses who are able to provide collaterals but are not eligible to provide collateral during the epidemic, then we can grant a loan first and make up for procedures later. And for businesses who are not able to provide collaterals, we can look at their business operation performance, risk appetite. We can have other ways to grant loans. Collaterals are not 100% necessary. We have not set up a minimum loan size requirement. For our bank, the lowest amount in loan that we granted was only 24,700 RMB. We saw many loans that have been granted in this relending fund that had a total loan value of lower than 100,000 RMB. Besides, we have a faster track for review and approval loans for these relending funds. And we have a deadline requirement for the financial institutions. Thank you. Last question. Journalist from the third row on the right side, please. From People's Daily, 健康报 JKB. This year is the last year for realizing the goal of the critical battle against poverty for the poverty alleviation. ABC has been a major financial institution supporting this critical battle. What are the measures adopted by ABC to financially support the realization of poverty alleviation goals? Thank you for your question. Yes, indeed. This year is the decisive year for our final win in the critical battle for poverty alleviation. Epidemic has brought about unexpected challenges for this battle. We had many challenges. Therefore, it is important that we consider both poverty alleviation and the epidemic response. Agricultural Development Bank has been a pioneer in ensuring poverty alleviation. Our overall goal remains unchanged for the year. We have explicitly pointed out that this year we want to grant a total loan of 280 billion RMB. 50% of the loan should go to agricultural business.
By March the 14th, this year's Poverty Alleviation Fund has already been distributed for 44 billion RMB yuan, and the key target is to offer support for epidemic containment and business recovery. Up to now, among the 52 remaining poverty-stricken areas, a large percentage of them have already received the Poverty Alleviation Fund. Furthermore, we have provided specific services to the epidemic containment and business recovery in those poor areas. This has become a priority in our work. For the poverty-stricken areas, based on the previous and existing policy measures, 10 additional policy measures are adopted. These policy measures have reduced the requirements for lending or for borrowing, and also have optimized the overall procedure to apply for the funds. Also, we have exempted 46 items of fee collection. By doing so, we hope to help the enterprises to overcome the difficulties. Furthermore, we have the well-targeted poverty alleviation support. We are building ourselves on the previous efforts and offered more support to the relevant industries. We have been very active in supporting the infrastructure and the public services. The poverty alleviation and the renovation of the rural areas are well integrated. Furthermore, this year we are making every effort to help the targeted poverty-stricken areas like Guangxi to get rid of poverty. According to the arrangements of the headquarters, we have the specific accountability system, and such one-on-one measure has been well monitored and assessed to realize the optimal result. We have the determination and the confidence to work together with the local governments and ensure the accomplishment of the objectives of poverty alleviation. Thank you. Today, the topic of the press conference is how the financial policies are supporting epidemic control and the business recovery. Just as the journalist has mentioned, on March the 12th, WHO declared that it has become a pandemic, and people are very concerned about the way to prevent potential import of the epidemic. So this will be tomorrow's topic, and we will have colleagues from the General Administration of the Customs and as well as the Civil Aviation Administration and the relevant authorities to come to the press conference. That's all for today's press conference. Thank you all.